Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Deborah Young, and I'm the CEO of the RegTech Association. And welcome. We're beaming out from Sydney, Australia today, where it is very, very hot, and we're expecting a big storm any minute. So hopefully, I don't melt during the next hour with you. I wanted to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today, and pay my respects to elders past and present, and offer a warm welcome to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander friends here with us today. And of course, a big warm welcome to all of you wherever you are from. I'll get underway in just a second, but if I could just ask mics and cameras off, thank you very much. This RegTechMatters event is somewhat of a tradition really for the association. It was an event very similar to this that we kicked off the association some 5 years ago, and we did a face-to-face event where we delivered on a very similar format today. It was sold out, and we did it at Stone and Chalk in Sydney, and it was beanbags only, standing room only at that event. And it continues to go from strength to strength, as do the rest of our programs. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen 16,000 people from 85 countries attend our programs. And so this particular program today really helps everyone understand RegTech, how it's applied. We always have a regulator come along to share their most recent insights and an update on what they're up to. And we certainly could not do it without our fantastic RegTechs, of which we have 3 on the line. And we also have lots of people joining us. So thank you all for making the time to be here this afternoon. For this particular event, we have 300 registrations from 22 countries, 35 regulated institutions, 86 RegTech companies, and 62 government/regulators. I'm getting some people are unable to hear. I may just need to keep moving on. The good news is that we do record all of these sessions, so if you do miss out on anything, it will be recorded, and we can share that with you at the conclusion. Today's, if I could ask everyone to put their cameras and their mics off, please. And if I could ask you, if you'd like to ask a question, please do so, but pop that in the chat. And I'm going to ask our presenters today to address those questions directly on the chat with you. And I'll also be encouraging our presenters to share any other links or information on their companies via the chat as well. We'll also be doing some polling throughout the event. There will be 2 polls. One will come as I'm introducing Francesca, and the other one will come towards the end. And for our presenters today, each of them have 7 minutes each, and I'm going to turn my camera and my mic on at about the 6.5-minute mark, just to let you know that it's time to wrap up. So without further ado, we are going to get underway. And just another quick reminder, please, if you could turn your cameras off, I would appreciate that. Thanks very much. You can go to the next slide, Hong. So the first part of our session today is really a bit of an overview on RegTech. So we're going to cover what it is, why it's needed, what it does. We're going to talk about the ecosystem. We're going to talk about some of the drivers for RegTech. We're going to talk about our RegTech taxonomy and how that works. We're going to give you a little bit of a world view of RegTech based on some data that we've just collected. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the RegTech Association, because I know there's a lot of people online today who are new friends. Thanks, Hong. Next slide. So I think the good place to start is, what is RegTech? Well, it's short for the words regulatory technology. And it refers to the application of all kinds of different technologies to improve the way businesses manage their regulation and compliance. And towards the end of this definition, you will see that it says all regulated industries, including financial services and government. And in actual fact, many more regulated verticals besides. If you think about it, any regulated industry will have regulation and compliance it needs to adhere to. And so RegTech can actually help across many, many different kinds of industries. Thanks, Hong. So RegTech can bring productivity, efficiency, and transparency. It has the ability to inform and transform, and it will help you build a better and more sustainable business. It also protects consumers. And we also think about RegTech as being an enabler rather than a disruptor. And we definitely say that RegTech is not fintech, and often they are bundled into the same bucket. But we would argue to say that any fintech needs RegTech as well. Thank you, Hong. Next slide. So the parts of the RegTech ecosystem look a bit like this. So it's the RegTech companies themselves, the regulated entities, like the banks and financial institutions and government, and there's regulators, of course. Technology firms, so that can be large technology companies that provide a lot of the infrastructure. Then there's startup accelerators and incubators who are helping early stage companies scale and grow. There's science and research organisations that conceive some of these ideas at the very earliest stages. And then obviously the media are an important part of the ecosystem as well, as are a whole host of allied affiliate industry bodies that we typically hold hands with around the world to send out the key messages around acceleration of adoption. Thank you, Hong. So some of the drivers for RegTech include these things. We are seeing consumer and citizen demand actually leapfrog over some of the typical drivers for RegTech adoption, and some of those can be about, the costs of compliance arising. An organisation may be undergoing a digital transformation. There's obviously the regulatory breaches. They're all drivers, but we're starting to see in our latest data collection some evidence to suggest that institutions are looking very much at their customers and consumers to guide them on products and services. And it is that demand which is actually one of the key drivers for RegTech going forward. There's two other things on this slide as well. Government services needing to be more agile and efficient, and based on what I was just saying, RegTech can be applied in lots of government use cases for things like digital signatures, digital identity, all the things that governments need to do to ensure that they can bring safe services to citizens. And finally, one of the key drivers for RegTech is at the bottom of the slide, and that refers to environment, social and governance impacts. And why this is so important is that RegTech, by the very nature of what it does, can help institutions uphold their ESG impacts. And not only that, ESG is going to become increasingly important for RegTech firms themselves as they seek professional capital to sustain them in their scale and growth. They will all need to have some pretty strong statements around the environment, social and governance impacts for their businesses. Thank you, Hong. I talked earlier about our taxonomy. So early on in the association's evolution, was super important for us to have a way of being able to organise everybody in the ecosystem. And the best way I can describe this is we've all been to lots of conferences, and you walk into the expo and it's like this huge array of different software vendors all selling you different styles of solutions. But it's hard to actually work out what's right for you, what's right for your organisation, what actually answers the call of your problem statement. And so what we've effectively done is develop a RegTech taxonomy, And these are just two parts of the taxonomy that you'll see on the screen here. One is it's a risk-based taxonomy, and you can see the 10 different areas of risk there. And then it has a couple of other things that it can do as well, in that it's got all of the software then categorized into functional roles and functional purpose and what jurisdiction they're from. So you can actually go to our website right now. It is free and it is there for anybody to use. And you can actually do a search on the directory right against your problem statement or your pain point, the functional role that you're looking for the software to combat, and you will find it all there. And so this is a really important part of what we do, and it's actually helping really help everyone everywhere in the world to be able to gain access to great RegTechs quickly and easily. Thank you, Hong. This slide is a couple of years old and we're looking to refresh this. The bit that's not old is the number on there that by 2026, the RegTech industry is expected to be around $204 billion US, and that's just in financial services alone. And what you can see on this chart, although we will be updating this soon, you can kind of see the different product producing nations of RegTech solutions. And some may say, well, why would a global RegTech association be founded out of Australia? I think this chart says it very nicely. Despite the fact that we have a much smaller population than the two larger ones on this chart, Australia punches way above their weight and are a serious centre for RegTech excellence and product producing of RegTech. And we sit side by side with our brothers and sisters in the United States and the United Kingdom. And we have some firms on the line today. Certainly, we've got two presentations from UK-based companies on the line today. Thank you, Hong. So I wanted to just unpack a little bit of the data that we've just collected. A copy of this report will be included in the follow-up email that you will receive tomorrow with the recording. It's available on our website now, but we will send you out a link if you would like to look more deeply at this. We collect this data every year, and we have started to benchmark year on year how we are progressing. Thank you, Hong. Next slide. So a couple of really, really key things. I won't read out everything on each of these slides because it does go into quite a lot of detail. But I think what we can see is the global RegTech community are adding jobs rather than taking them away, which is a significant sign. When we're hearing of the slowing in the technology sector, it is not what we are experiencing in the RegTech sector. So I wanted to make that clear. And you can see there in the middle, 43% of our RegTech companies had reported over 30% revenue growth in the 21 to 22 year. We are also seeing much more solid signs of professional capital flowing into the industry and a real shift away from bootstrapped companies. So for the institutions and the regulators on the line today, you can talk to our RegTechs and have real confidence that these are companies that are trustworthy and are certainly going places. I think one of the things on this slide, which we can't just talk about the good things, we also need to talk about the challenges, and that one on the bottom that talks about procurement is a real pain point. For most scale-up companies, it is extremely difficult to go through the procurement process in large and complex organisations. So part of the work that we do at the association is to try and break down some of those barriers and surface those conversations to break down some of the barriers to make procurement easier for everybody concerned. Thank you, Hong. Next slide. This is an important one because these are some insights from RegTech buyers. Now, I alluded to this in my earlier slide, but we are starting to see this real theme emerge that customer-driven expectations are one of the top motivating factors behind RegTech adoption by institutions. And what you can also see here is some of the preferred traits. So for RegTech buyers on the line, we collected the data and it seems to say that you value a RegTech vendor that is organisational ready. They have their technology risk covered off. They might have their ISO accreditations. They've done their cyber risk work. They've got a track record. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about with our RegTechs today on the line. What is their track record? Who are they working with? And they are also looking for software vendors to give them a dedicated resource to support the proof of concept trial or, in fact, the fully blown deployment. So there's some things to be aware of if you're a RegTech company and some things that we are hearing loud and clear from institutions. Thanks, Hong. Now, from the RegTech vendors perspective, we are seeing the most common challenges when they're deploying solutions. You can see some of the things down there are scope creep, changing personnel and the lack of continuity that offers, and client resourcing once live. So that's a tip for any institutions online. You need to be alive to all of those things. 61% of RegTechs reported capital coming from sophisticated investments, which is a very, very strong and confidence building sign. We have seen post-pandemic about 18% of our RegTechs have seen reduced export opportunities, but about the same number have also reported new and unexpected export opportunities. So there are still plenty of opportunities to unpack. And final slide, Hong, is regulators. So what we are seeing is, due to the pandemic, a majority of regulatory respondents found that its appetite for RegTech and SupTech solutions is increasing, and that would certainly bear out when we look at the number of regulators that are engaged with the association right now. You can also see some of the challenges that regulators may have in adopting SupTech or RegTech. And that is, the capability of the RegTech or the SupTech provider, the training of their internal personnel, budgetary constraints, and also internal technology constraints. Thank you, Hong. We'll move along just in the interest of time. And just really quickly, I wanted to wrap up some of those insights with just a little bit about us. We were founded in 2017 as a global non-profit and independent community. We represent about 160 businesses from around the world. We lead engagement collaboration between regulators, institutions, government, and technology companies. We assist regulators to embrace regulatory and compliance technology. We run programs such as this, events. We do research. We do a bit of consulting work with trade agencies, as an example. And we work with trade organisations around the world. And we also have memorandums of understanding with global industry partners, and some of those organisations you can see on the bottom of this slide. And we proudly support the First Nations Foundation, who are an Indigenous financial literacy foundation. Thanks, Hong. So in a nutshell, we provide 24/7 free access to our taxonomy, which means that you can find the answer or maybe some of the answers to your problem statements. We bring the directory to life through our digital programs such as this that allow everybody to come together to get a snapshot of solutions without any direct selling. We run programs that drive conversations and highlight industry trends. We do research and publish reports on the progress of the RegTech ecosystem. We advocate for RegTech around the world. We hold an annual conference to highlight the opportunities and challenges. We acknowledge excellence through our annual awards program, so watch for that later in this year. We hold face-to-face events in major RegTech buying centres, including Singapore, London, Amsterdam, and New York. And since 2020, we've had 16,000 people from 85 countries join our programs. Thanks, Hong. It is now my great pleasure to introduce you to Francesca Hopwood Road. Now, Hong needs to do some things behind the scenes, and I just need to let you know that Francesca is joining us by a pre-recorded video that we recorded with her just a few days ago. And one of the reasons for that, as Lisa Ison, who's on the line, can attest, it is very, very, very early in the morning in the UK. And so we needed to do this recording with Francesca. But for those of you who don't know Francesca, I'll just give you a little bit of her background. She's the centre head for the Innovation Hub for the Bank for International Settlements. Since joining the Centre Hub in February 2022, she's led the delivery of the London Centre's project portfolio and worked to build out the Centre's strategic direction and areas of focus. As a member of the Innovation Hub's leadership team, she's actively involved in shaping key activities, including the Innovation Summit, which is coming up, and I believe that's out in Channel now if you wish to register for that. She previously headed up the Financial Conduct Authority's RegTech and SupTech program of work, and she led a department of 50 data scientists, engineers, technologists, business change and comms specialists. And in that role, she was quite a pioneer. She created a diverse and inclusive culture, enabling the identification and exploration of cutting-edge data science techniques, including the world's first digital sandbox and a suite of SupTech tools. She was the inaugural chair of the GFIN's RegTech and SupTech program and judged at international tech sprints and drove the vision and execution of the Global Women's Economic Empowerment Tech Sprint. In 2022, she co-founded the Global Women and Regulatory Innovation Network that I'm a proud advisor to. I'm just going to check in with Hong that he has everything ready to go there with the recording. And I would also just say that there is a small glitch right at the beginning of the recording. Don't be concerned, it does even out and the syncing does get back underway. So I just wanted to set that expectation for you. And I'll come back at the conclusion of the recording. It runs for about 8 minutes.
I am delighted to join you for today's RegTechMatters event. These events, hosted by the RegTech Association, are really important convening moments to share insight and make connections, and it is my pleasure to join you today. In the spirit of making connections, I will spend some time today introducing you to the Bank for International Settlements' Innovation Hub, and in doing so, hopefully raise your awareness of two things. One, our specific focus on RegTech and SupTech, and secondly, opportunities to leverage RegTech and your areas of interest in other parts of our portfolio. The Bank for International Settlements is often known as the central bank for central banks. Based in Switzerland, it has for over 90 years existed to support central banks' pursuit of monetary and financial stability through international cooperation and to act as that bank for central banks. What this means in practice is that as well as providing services to central banks, it also produces high quality research and insight on topics. If I just glance back through the last 6 pieces of research published, they cover topics including green finance, corporate digital identity, central bank digital currencies, and non-bank institutions. And if I can also add, these papers were all published in the last 2 years of the last year. This really signals the prodigious and broad research output from the organisation, and I would really encourage you to take a look. Crucially, it also supports and hosts the work of the standard-setting bodies, including the Basel Committee for Banking Supervision and the Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructure, the Financial Stability Board, as well as a few others. These organisations drive global regulatory standards in a range of areas. But you may have noticed that when I opened my remarks this morning, I talked about introducing you to the BIS Innovation Hub. I lead the BIS's Innovation Hub London Centre. The Innovation Hub was a new initiative developed by the BIS just over 3 years ago. The Innovation Hub has 7 centres across the globe, including in Singapore, Hong Kong, Switzerland, the Eurosystem, the Nordics, Toronto, and here in London. And we also have a strategic partnership with the New York Fed. The role of the Innovation Hub is to develop public goods in the technology space to support central banks and to improve the functioning of the global financial system. And we work across 6 domains: RegTech SupTech, central bank digital currencies, next generation financial market infrastructure, green finance, open finance, and cybersecurity. At the heart of our work is working in collaboration with others in industry, in academia, with other supervisory agencies and central banks, to co-create proofs of concepts and prototypes to understand the value, the opportunity and the challenge of new technologies. We seek to disseminate this learning into the central banking community and beyond. Now, I'm sure your interest was piqued and you immediately saw the relevance when I talked about RegTech and SupTech. I want to share with you some of the work we have done in this domain over the last 3 years. And our work here splits into 2 areas. We have the G20 Tech Sprint programme and the range of SupTech and RegTech projects that the centres have delivered. The G20 Tech Sprint is a long-form global hackathon series that the BIS Innovation Hub co-hosts annually with the G20 presidencies to highlight the potential for new technologies to resolve common challenges and focal priorities of the global regulatory and central banking community. In 2020, we co-hosted with Saudi Arabia the G20 RegTech SupTech Tech Sprint, which showcased the potential for new and innovative technologies to resolve operational problems in the areas of RegTech and SupTech. It was implemented with the support of a range of organisations, including the Monetary Authority of Singapore, the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority, the Financial Stability Board, and RegTech Regulators Accelerator. And tech sprints in recent years have looked at green finance solutions and central bank digital currencies. Please do watch out for further information about the 2023 G20 Tech Sprint under the Indian presidency. But now I want to touch on some of the RegTech and SupTech projects that the Innovation Hub centres have delivered or are in the process of delivering. And I want to highlight 4 in particular. One of the very first was Project Rio from the Swiss Centre. It's a prototype of a central bank specific real-time capable market monitoring platform. It is a cloud-based stream processing platform which processes real-time financial data feeds and computes relevant liquidity and market risk measures. Project Ellipse from the Singapore Centre explores how technology solutions could enable supervision to be more forward-looking, insights-based and data-driven using an integrated regulatory data and analytics platform. Importantly, the Ellipse prototype combines both structured and unstructured data sources of data that are relevant to current events in real time. Advanced analytics are then applied to those integrated data sources to provide supervisors with early warning indicators, analytics and prudential metrics. Our third project is incredibly relevant, and as many of you will have seen in the news in recent months, the collapse of many stablecoins and decentralized finance lending platforms has highlighted the difficulty of assessing the risks and economic potential of DeFi, decentralized finance. Project Atlas, which is run out of the Eurosystem Centre, is aiming to create an open source market intelligence platform to shed light on market capitalizations, economic activity and risks to financial stability. And finally, a project that is very close to my heart, Project Pixtrial, which we've just launched out of the London Centre. And here we're aiming to develop a platform to monitor stablecoins balance sheets. Most central banks currently lack tools to systematically monitor stable coins and avoid asset liability mismatches. The project will aim to investigate various technological tools that may help supervisors and regulators to build policy frameworks based on integrated data. Finally, I want to draw your attention to something that may not be immediately obvious at first glance in our work programme. And that is the way the expertise and specialism of RegTech is being leveraged in some of our other domains. And let me explain what I mean by that. If we think about the typical skill areas within RegTech, around, for example, regulatory reporting or AML KYC, we see how we are exploring those in new payment and digital asset domains. For example, with Project Aurora, which is being run out of our Nordics Innovation Centre, it is exploring how the latest data technologies can be used to combat money laundering across financial institutions and borders. It's a really important example of how, as we seek to evolve and develop our work in existing and emerging areas, we will need to draw on existing capability and expertise. The experience of the RegTech community, the domains where you already have expertise, will need to be leveraged across our project portfolio, and Project Aurora is just one very good example of that. I hope today I have given you a flavour of the work not just of the Innovation Hub, but the wider Bank for International Settlements, and in that vein, food for thought for areas where you might see opportunities to get involved. Thank you very much for having me today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
I'm delighted now to invite David Byron from Cube, one of our fantastic RegTech companies, who has a short presentation. And he will be followed by Thomas McNally from Quantexa, and then finally Lisa Eisen from SkyJed. But over to you, David, and I'll put my camera on at the 6.5-minute mark. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Deborah. And hello, everyone. I'm David Byron from Cube. Today, I wanted to focus on several use cases, but before that, give you a little bit of background as to what we do and how we do it. So on the next page, please. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that since 2008, the pace of regulatory change has been frenetic. And doesn't continue to slow down. It's got to a point where the largest institutions are unable to actually manage this regulatory change through additional headcount. And I'll talk about that in one of my use cases. Over 10 years ago, Cube was first to market, build out a regulatory intelligence platform. And this is a technology platform based around natural language processing, and where we machine read the regulatory internet at a global level. And more than that, we classify that content as it's relevant to different topics, themes, etc. Many of the areas that are within the RegTech taxonomy today. Next, please. From our perspective, we cover regulatory intelligence that impacts the financial services sector. We do that globally. And we also translate any non-English languages back to English and present them side by side. Now, we don't just track, but we keep a full inventory of those regulations. And they're, apart from being profiled for the financial services sector, we also look at the other areas that impact those institutions, and whether that's ESG, HR, cyber, data protection, etc. So full gamut of regulations that impact financial institutions globally. Next, please. One of the areas that has a great deal of focus right now is effectively building out an obligations register, the management of the individual obligations that are specified by regulators. And as many of you will know, there are many obligations around different topics within each of these documents. So we extract these regulations, we format them, we profile the visibility of these regulations for each customer's business activities. So each customer gets their own personalised view. They then get a very granular view at a section level of those requirements that are enforceable, as well as any other issuances that come from the regulators that are relevant to them. So whether that's consultation papers, it could even be blogs. So any issuance we capture, and then we classify that. And that classification process also extracts the individual obligations within the regulatory requirements. And because of our classification engine, we can also map and tag where these obligations are relevant within each customer's business activities. And that may be at a product level, business level, cross-functional organisation level, etc. So this mapping to your business provides a very automated but highly accurate way of seeing all obligations across all regulators in the jurisdictions that our customers operate in. And then obviously this cycle continues. Next, please. Just a quick view of some of our customers and some of the partners that we work with. We understand that customers are looking for end-to-end solutions, so we work very closely with a number of consulting firms, technology firms, etc., to provide that level of automation and specific data requirements for each of their customers. Now, I want to move on and to two of those. Let's find next slide. Two of those customers. Our largest customer is Citigroup, and that's global across all the business lines. But what was their problem? Why did they need a RegTech solution? Well, it started as the inability to keep up and actually have an inventory of all the regulation that was applicable to them in the US, across all states and across all of their businesses. They literally had thousands of staff scanning and being notified by different feeds and many other inputs around regulatory change, and then trying to sort out if that regulatory change was relevant to them. They didn't have a consolidated view, and they weren't able to bring that consolidated view into a GRC platform so that they could then workflow and process regulatory change and map it to controls and policy. So with Q, we're able to initially provide them with a complete inventory of all regulation specific to their businesses within the US. That rapidly expanded to over another 100 jurisdictions globally across all of their business lines. Now, we often talk about cost savings and ROI, and yes, there are cost savings when you implement a RegTech solution. But the reality is that you're moving that intelligent resource of people who are trying to find things and decide if they're relevant. You actually move that resource to where they're better suited, and that is actually enabling regulatory change within their organisation and ensuring the compliance. And that's the key component of the benefit to Citi that we brought to them. Yes, we integrated into a single GRC platform, and we provided them with a pathway for further automation. Next, please, Tom. This is an Australian global financial services company, and they were having to implement a whole new compliance framework. So they got a single view of regulation and regulatory change, which they did not have. And again, having the headcount available to actually monitor and manage that regulatory change. They have hugely diverse product line across many jurisdictions, which just added to the complications. So we've driven cost savings. We've driven a single view of regulatory change specific to their individual products and individual risk taxonomy within that organisation. Next, please. I'm just going to leave
if you could wrap it up, that'd be great. Thank you.
Just going to mention that we do have an ROI calculator on our website. So thank you very much for your time. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks very much, David. I know it's not easy to have somebody with the clock on you. So welcome, Tom from Quantexa. Thanks very much for being with us.
No worries. Hi, Deb, and thanks to the RegTech Association for having us back today. So my name's Tom McNally, and I lead AML solutions for Quantexa across Asia Pacific. Today, I thought I'd focus on a very topical area with regulators globally, given the kind of event title, and specifically this being trade-based money laundering, and a case study of results from a recent implementation of Quantexa's trade-based money laundering detection solution at a couple of our clients. Given time, I'll also try and squeeze in the briefest of solution overviews and bring some of the results into some context. Next slide, please, Hon. So before we dive in, for those of you who aren't aware of Quantexa, they don't know who we are a UK headquartered company and provide financial crime and fraud analytics platforms to banks, insurers, governments, and other industries with over 500 staff globally. I'm pleased to say that the specific solution we're discussing today, which is the contextual monitoring approach to trade-based money laundering detection, is actually our most rapidly adopted solution by clients. Next slide, Hon. Now, I mentioned that trade-based money laundering was really a focus area for regulators. To kind of back that up with some key proof points, there's a couple on the screen here. So it includes the 2021 FCA's Dear CEO letter, plus more recently and closer to home for myself here in Sydney, the October 2022 AUSTRAC TBML updated guidance. Now, the reason I mention this is both of these guidance papers stress the increased expectations for a risk-based approach to trade-based money laundering detection, and actually highlight the need for a new and next-gen approach to detecting this kind of collusive importer-exporter activity that's very often the precursor to money laundering within trade finance. They also highlight the need for additional controls around the risk assessment of counterparties. And really, it's these next-gen capabilities that are required to augment or replace traditional manual trade controls that most banks are employing today that are very time and cost expensive. Next one, please, Hon. So our case studies today will actually present the outcomes when taking a next-gen approach to the detection of trade-based money laundering, and actually very aligned to that regulatory guidance that that I was referring to earlier. But just to really summarize and get to the crux of what the solution actually is. So Quantexa's trade risk solution effectively enables a bank to better understand their own trade customer and also the counterparty of their customers' trade transactions. So if you look at the diagram on the screen, in the top left-hand kind of dotted box of the screen there, you can see the typical limited internal view that a bank would have of their trade customer. So in this instance, you've got a customer name, Acme Limited. You might have a director that you've collected during KYC onboarding, a phone number, an email address, etc. You'll also likely have, from a counterparty perspective, whatever details you have within a SWIFT payment message or some other payment message, but traditionally very limited to a counterparty name, maybe an address. So really what Quantexa looks to do in a nutshell is enrich your internal view of your customer and your counterparty using external data. And that really highlights hidden relationships and hidden connections that are very indicative of things like collusion and money laundering. So in this instance here, you can see we've kind of linked our customer to a corporate registry. We've identified additional directors of our customer, so John Smith and Joe Bloggs, as well as other countries of operations, potentially other addresses that you didn't hold internally within your KYC record. We'd also do that automatically to your counterparty. So that's unpacking automatically the full corporate hierarchy and corporate structure of your counterparty to your transactions. So that can include, again, things like country of business operations, ultimate beneficial owners. And what that then allows you to do is meet the kind of renewed and newly released guidance from regulators about uncovering hidden collusive connections between trade relationships, so importer-exporter relationships, highly unusual and atypical relationships within the kind of trade finance product set. So I guess to summarize what that actually means, the solution performs in an automated way the manual due diligence tasks that a human analyst would have to do that can take days, weeks, months when onboarding and continually refreshing and assessing trade finance customers and counterparties. Okay, short on time, so on to the next one, please. Right, let's get to case studies. So I've got two case studies here, two different clients, one where we've implemented our AML solution and one where we've implemented our very similar but slightly different solution for trade fraud prevention. So two different customers. So on the left-hand side, if we start with AML, we can see what's the benefits of taking this next generation approach that aligns to regulatory guidance. So at this global banking client, I won't name the name, we're able to reduce their kind of monthly alerts within trade finance from 7,000 to 200. So a 97% reduction in alerts that are being produced. And whilst doing that, we're able to increase the alert conversion rate. So by that, I mean the number of alerts that ultimately result in a regulatory report through an STR, an SMR, and an SAR by 35%. So we're finding new risk whilst reducing the number of alerts that are being produced by taking this next generation approach aligned to regulatory guidance. And then to briefly summarize from a fraud perspective, so this is a different global bank here, we're actually able to massively save the bank money, right, through fraud loss prevention through the trade finance product. So over 500 million in the first 2 years of the implementation of the solution, and 100% increase in fraud cases that were identified that weren't identified using the kind of traditional manual approach to kind of fraud identification. I just want to say that that has now been rolled out. The solution set has been rolled out across over 50 countries globally. And so we're getting massively awesome results that kind of proves that, you know, the next generation approach that regulators are taking to this kind of prevention of AML and fraud is really garnering real tangible benefits for the customers and banks themselves. So I can see, Deb, if we just kind of go to the final slide, I just want to say thank you very much. Appreciate your time for having us here. If you'd like to hear more, please do reach out to myself or anyone else at Quantexa for more of a deeper dive into what is actually quite a complex product and solution. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Tom. And please feel free to pop on to the chat any information on your company that you would like to include, as well as your email and other things to let people know how they can contact you. Thank you. Well, what a fantastic colour on this next slide. Welcome, Lisa Ison. Lisa's the CEO of SkyJet and also a board member of the RegTech Association. Welcome to early morning London, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa, so CEO and founder of SkyJet. I just want to kick off today on the next slide, Han, just to introduce you to SkyJet. So SkyJet's a product lifecycle management and governance platform. So we're a cost-effective software as a service model with simple onboarding and absolutely no coding to adapt to different product goals and regulatory regimes. So it's an AI-based platform. And I guess my mission with SkyJet is to enable product teams globally to be able to embed customer values and sustainability in every lifecycle decision they make. So I'll take you today through some real live examples of how SkyJet's been deployed in different industry sectors, but I've also got some, you know, great benchmarks and insights across the 100 companies now on our platform, using it to not only improve the growth in their product teams, but to deploy it for regimes like consumer duty and product level sustainability statements. So next slide. Just a bit, so the problem we are solving is really simple. There are plenty of tools out there for product teams to launch new products, agile development and road mapping. But for post-launch product management and governance, product teams are working across disparate systems, Excel, PowerPoint for updating their boards and making it really challenging. Now, this makes it really difficult to monitor non-financial risk across your product portfolios. Now, a lot of companies are adopting a product governance framework, which is mandated now in 25 countries, but operationalising that framework is very difficult to do it efficiently between your product and compliance teams. Conducting annual product reviews, very time consuming. And we know that product managers change role every 18 months, very difficult to manage the knowledge around that. So over in the next slide, this is where SkyJet comes in. So we are a SaaS platform and we give you a 360-degree view of your product health. Now, we're quite unique because we are a continuous monitoring and review platform, and we give you these AI-based health scores that senior executives can use to see the risk in their product portfolios. Now, we also, through these 5 domains in our product governance framework, help product teams and compliance teams look at non-financial risk. So you can see there we still support with revenue and value, but we also help get those customer insights back into the hands of the product managers and up as high as the board is required and your regulatory requirements. So we're enterprise grade platform and you can be up and running in minutes. So over on the next slide, you can see this is just a quick visual representation of SkyJet. So we have a design workspace to design your new products and to set your sustainability strategy at that product level. Over on the next slide, we also have a monitoring or audit workspace. Now, this is great because this is for your post-launch product management. It automates all your reporting, all your risk management and insights, and importantly, the version control and keeps all those records for your regulator and internally. On the next slide, you can see one of the unique features about SkyJet and feedback I'm getting here in London and the UK is that it can be adapted very quickly to a new product goal or regulatory regime. And we do that through these input drivers. and they're prompts for information. Now you can see over on the next slide, they're very dynamic and intelligent, but we bundle them up into business goals. And you can see here, doesn't matter if it's an annual product review, sustainability statement, launch ready review, you can create, you can use those, or you can create your own in minutes. Very dynamic and cost effective to adapt to a new regime. On the next slide, you can see a platform comes with all your reporting, your product governance, product health, your revenue, and you can create your own reports. On the next slide, you can see an example of a report that we created actually for a board member. And they said they wanted to have transparency into every product in their portfolio, but they didn't want a truckload of PowerPoint decks. So you can see on this slide, we give you this health check score, and you can drill down across those 5 domains and click to see what's driving the red or the green, the opportunity. So next slide. And now I just want to sort of talk about how this has come together in a real life customer case study. As I said, 100 companies across our platform, but here today, one of Australia's most innovative banks, Great Southern Bank. So they had a business need to be able to help their product managers proactively monitor every month, every product in their portfolio and be more strategic. They wanted to be able to schedule their annual product reviews and get reminders when they were coming up if they're late. They wanted to be able to pull in data from different systems, monitor the performance of their product, get notifications when they've hit certain thresholds, but also have all of the governance and reporting that they need automated. Now you see over on the next slide, in this case study example, which is very typical for us, the product governance framework was defined and onboarded in just 5 weeks for the team. We automated all their data streams so that product managers had some great insights. We ran masterclasses on best practice product management because they had this objective to lift the standard of their product management in 90 days. So you can see here, having that sort of single source of truth across your products, we typically see brings savings to product teams, which means that they've got more time to spend on strategy and growth. And also you get that 100% transparency of monitoring and a consistent cadence across every product in your portfolio. So just finally, the next slide, just to finish off, the strategic benefits of having this single source of truth across your product portfolios, and to be able to share product information into your distribution channel or your supply chain, which we support, not only means better top line growth through monitoring your products, but also just getting transparency and better accountability into your business around these product lifecycle areas. So finally, on the last slide, I'll just leave you here with a quote from Barbara O'Connor-Nash, Chief Product Officer at Great Southern Bank. As you can see, just lifting the standard of that product governance, having that single source of truth, that end-to-end product management across all of the products in your portfolio, bringing value to that organisation. So Deb, that's the quick run through from here in London at the moment. I'm more than happy to continue the conversation with anyone offline, take any questions, and thank you for the opportunity today, Deb.
Thanks very much, Lisa. And Lisa, I'd encourage you, or if you've got any of your team on the line, to pop up some information into the chat so people can know how to contact you, or if they have any questions. You will all see that there is a little poll on the screen. If you could complete that, that would be awesome. We want to keep our pencil sharp around the events that we do, and we are looking at ways of continuously improving these. So before I call a close for today, first of all, I wanted to thank you very much. So as a bit of a summary, what we heard and we learned was a little bit about the RegTech ecosystem. We got some live insights from the regulator of the regulators, from Francesca from the Bank for International Settlements. Then we heard from 3 fantastic RegTech companies, and these are the typical kinds of companies that you will find when you come to the RegTech Association's directory. So please do look them up, and I thank them very much for their time and spending that time with us today. And then finally, last but not least, I wanted to let you know of a few other things that are happening around here. First thing is our annual conference is coming up in April. Accelerate RegTech 2023 has two components. If you're dialing in right now from overseas and can't join us here in Sydney on the 27th face-to-face, that's okay, because we have a completely virtual event for you that you can register for at no cost. That is available on our website, so you can just go on there and register for that event now. We already have around about, I'm going to say 450, but maybe it's more than that, people already registered, and it's not until the end of April. And we have some fantastic speakers, including regulators from all over the world at both of those programs. Two other things on here are our conduct and culture risk and our financial crime sessions, which will be on the 2nd and the 21st of March. So I wanted to flag those with you. Once again, those are free programs, and you can log onto the website and register for those now as we speak, if you haven't already. And the thing that is not on this slide is something that I mentioned earlier. We will be in Amsterdam and we will be in London in June of this year, where we're going to be running 2 live events across those weeks. We're just nutting out what the exact dates are going to be. But please, if you're in either of those places or you have colleagues in those places, please tell them to come along, because we'll do a little bit like what we've done today and what we do on our other programs, but we'll be doing it face to face and bringing the show right to your doorstep.